Terra, sweet Terra, a world where city weapon catastrophes are a common occurrence. The sea is trying to take over the land, a rock can give you cancer AIDS, and we don't speak about the north. What a lovely place, who wouldn't want to live there? I wouldn't. Hi, I'm Outtakes and I play Arknights. Wow, shockers, who would have guessed? I think this game is awesome and it has hooked me ever since 2022, probably among my all-time top 3. For those unaware who somehow stumbled upon this video, Arknights is a tower defense gacha, where you collect characters with unique skills to win the levels. Kind of like Plants vs Zombies, but you're using anime waifus to kill ordinary people instead. Operators, the characters you collect, are divided between 8 classes, each with a primary function. Medics heal, defenders tank, supporters support, and specialists do whatever they feel like, honestly. Those are also subdivided in, you guessed it, subclasses. A marksman sniper attacks a single enemy, while an artilleryman sniper hits in an area. Exceptions may apply. That out of the way, back in early November of last year, I asked myself, if I were an operator, which subclass would I be in? So I looked into my favorite archetypes, of course, which were many. I'll be entirely honest and say I don't remember exactly what my thought process was, though I did discard the more quote-unquote labor-intensive archetypes, ones that already have plenty of operators, or subclasses that I like playing with but don't see myself in them. In the end, I chose Incantation Medics. It's the subclass of medics that heal your operators by damaging enemies. Not only are they extremely fun to play with, but I also tend to gravitate towards supportive roles in video games. No, I'm not a bottom. So yeah, task finished, time to move on and... But what if I made my own operator? I should preface that this isn't necessarily me in Arknights, it's more of an OC heavily inspired by myself, if that makes any sense. Does it? Am I sounding crazy? With that out of the way, let's take a quick look into the character's design and background before delving into his kit. One thing I appreciate about Arknight's narrative is that ordinary folk are not taken for granted. Despite the crazy nuclear arsonist and almighty gods every now and then, most stories are about your average guy or gal trying to get by. I really like this grounded approach, so I decided my operator would be a simple chemistry student from the Solace, currently interning at Rhodes Island Engineering Department for Urban and Inlandship Water Analysis. The choice of chemistry was rather straightforward. There's a precedent for operators in that field and I myself am a chemist. Honestly, I was a bit split on making him part of the engineering department since it's mostly machinery stuff. But Witty and Corrosarum work with bioengineering and chemical weapons, so there's some leeway. Also, the Solace is just the closest representation my country will ever get in Arknights. Aesthetics also didn't take too long to figure out. Most of Arknights' designs, especially the earlier ones, tend to have very practical clothing for the character's job, which I wanted to reflect on my operator's design. I was also really into city pop back then, mainly because of Linger in the Rain by Jon Kager, so I went to add some purples and blues as well, you know? Also because water and rain... I really like the raincoat idea, okay? Well, I think I spent long enough talking about the design. It's about time to meet Raindrop. Hello, is this the doctor's office? I came to hand him some documents. From now on, I'll be interning for Rhodes Island Engineering Department. The name is Felice Leal. Oh, a code name. Right. Call me Raindrop. It's fitting, I guess. I'd like to highlight the fact I'm nowhere near Arknight's levels of artistic talent, so it's quite a simple design. The rubber boots, waterproof trousers, and raincoat go hand in hand with the rainy day aesthetic that I'm flimsily piecing together. Originally the raincoat was meant to be holographic, like those cool Pokemon cards or Murilo's flag, but I suffer from massive skill issues and could not for the life of me replicate that texture. I still made it very colorful so it would stick out from the rest of his design, making it a kind of centerpiece. He also has a toe belt, which would have more stuff in an official design, but I really didn't like how cluttered his waist was looking, so I left him with a single conductivity meter. Hey, maybe it's an all-in-one, who knows? At last, the staff. All Incantation Medics have one for arts channeling, I imagine, and this is no exception. However, this one has an extra oomph. You see, part of water analysis is collecting the samples, so I designed this staff, I say as if I were an engineer, to store Falcon tubes containing water samples by magnetic attachment, or something like that. The lore behind this staff is from the operator record I wrote way back in November, which has been cut from the project. I'll link it in the description for those who'd like to read it, but let's just say it's a gift from a very dear friend. Making the operator's kit was by far my favorite part. Let's get the basic stuff out of the way. These are his base stats and potentials. By all means, it's very mid, as in the average attributes for a 5 stars Incantation Medic. The main problem players face when using the subclass is that their healing greatly depends on the enemies. In other words, they get screwed by high res, long range attacks, or forms of passive damage with no targets in sight. Reed and Hibiscus both deal with the first issue by reducing the enemy's res, while Amiya outright ignores it with true damage. And I guess you could say Vandalla's skill 2 is fine against ranged attacks. Amiya is the only one who can heal without her normal attacks, but only when her skill is active. I want to expand on this idea by creating an Incantation Medic who doesn't entirely rely on attacking enemies to heal, in a way that feels integrated to his kit while not completely taking away from what makes the archetype unique. I figured some form of passive healing would be the most adequate, similar to Perfumer's talent, but limited to his range. And since we already have a rain theme going on, why not have it in the form of a refreshing drizzle? Raindrop's talent, Drizzle, continuously restores the HP of all allies within range by 5% of his attack. During skill downtime, this talent heals a solid 30.5 HP per second, better than the likes of Perfumer, while not surpassing 6 stars like Civilite Eterna and AF Yala. I should mention that with Module the healing goes from 5 to 10% of his attack, which pretty much doubles it. If you think it's too strong for a 5 stars, just remember, you're spending your data blocks on a 5 stars. Here's a comparison among some operators with forms of passive healing. As previously stated, his talent, aka the passive healing, should be a core part of his kit. Thus, I wanted both of his skills to interact with it in different ways, defensively and offensively. Skill 1, Clarification, increases his attack by 90% and targets 2 enemies simultaneously. Despite the short description, this skill has many ways of increasing his healing output, similarly to Amiya's skill 1. The attack boost causes him to deal more damage, which in turn makes him heal more, while targeting 2 enemies at once is as good as doubling his healing. Also, remember how his talent scales off his own attack? Not his allies' HP, not a fixed value, just his attack stat. Yeah, that's what we like to call a heavy rain.
Child. Anyway, so...
Here are some more numbers to compare. Skill 2, Acidification, makes it so his talent no longer heals allies. Instead, it damages enemies for 150% of his attack as arts damage. Raindrop immediately heals an ally for 100% of his attack when an enemy within range dies. Okay, lots to unpack here. Firstly, his passive healing turns into passive damage. The best defense is a good offense, you know? I actually didn't expect this form of damage could be turned into healing until I paid closer attention to Reed Alter and realized, hey, it actually tracks. The burst heal is there mostly because I didn't know this and thought the skill would be too underwhelming. To clarify, or rather acidify, it would target the ally with the lowest HP within range, excluding those who cannot be targeted. Sorry, Penance. In hindsight, isn't this just the inverse of Reed's third skill? Well, I digress. For the sake of comparison, here's the DPS of other lingering effects in operators. If you're an attentive viewer, you might have noticed that Raindrop doesn't offer much utility behind raw healing and damage, which is by design. On the one hand, I'm all for modern 5 stars having actually good numbers and impactful kits, but on the other hand, I didn't want my pretentious self-insert OC to suddenly outshine others in his class. Maybe he could apply a res debuff on skill 2, or maybe Drizzle should only be active during his skill's duration. What do you think, dear viewer? Well, now that we're done with the operator's kit, I have a little extra for you. Voice lines! I thought they could be a charming little addition, just to better flesh out the character, you know? Just a disclaimer, I'm not by all means and definitions a professional voice actor. Heck, I don't think I even qualify as a good voice actor, so you've been warned. Sure, whatever you need. Yes, the sampler staff is capable of storing polypropylene tubes as well as collecting and ejecting their contents. No, I would not advise using it as a water gun, Doctor. There's this one Aegir girl who's super enthusiastic about water treatment here in the landship. In fact, she might be a bit too enthusiastic. There was this one time I approached her, wondering if we could work together, and I kid you not, she wouldn't stop rambling about environmental conservation and such. Not that I'm complaining though. The rain isn't as bad as people think it is. You can wear cozy clothes, the plants get watered, and there's that lovely scent of wet dirt. Remember that thing about rain not being that bad? Yeah, no, only when you're home. I just took a bus on my way back to the landship and traffic was awful. The bus was horribly crowded and I smell like a wet pearl now, literally. Living abroad isn't exactly easy. Being far away from friends and family, and somewhere with entirely different traditions. It's quite haunting. But I can't let that stop me. Being here is a privilege in and of itself, so I must seize it. Rhodes Island has such a plentiful garden. I met some pretty good natural pH indicators from the flowers growing there, though I don't think that sarcasm man appreciated me uprooting those plants. Doctor, would you do me a little favor and pick some for me? Oh, sorry. No, it's nothing, really. I just got back from analyzing some water samples from the Bolivarian plain. The original content is small enough to not be alarming for public healthcare, but it's certainly enough to cause long-term damage if consumed on a daily basis. Those poor workers. Dos Soles, oh Dos Soles. It's a wonderful city. First things that come to mind are the radiant beaches and the Dos Soles Warrior Championship. But truth is that the city's heart lies within the botecos that open by evening. Elders playing cards, kids running around, friends sharing a beer while watching soccer on the TV. It's not that touristically appealing, yes, but it's what makes Dos Soles, well, Dos Soles. If you ever need a class on chemical analysis, I think I can help. It's actually pretty easy. The most common kind of analysis involves some kind of titration, which varies according to the equipment at hand and your analyte. An analyte, by the way, is basically, oh, you're asleep. Your operators seem to use their water arts a bit too defensively. It's an honor to be held in such high regards. Thank you, Doctor. My internship at Rhodes Island has been nothing but life-changing for me. Not only have I been able to develop my research much further, I've met wonderful people along the way. You too, Doctor. By the way, is there any chance I could extend my stay here? You know, just a year or two if you're feeling generous. Right, field missions are an excellent opportunity for collecting more samples. Am I really qualified for this position? Simbora, pessoal. Let's give it our best shot. Hold on, everyone. Just give me a minute to collect these samples. Yes. I'm right here. Oh, the water here seems awfully clean. Ugh, the water here seems awful. Olha a chuva! Água mole, pedra dura, tanto bate até que fura. Chove chuva, chove sem parar. Don't linger in the rain for too long. Doctor, I'm not suited for this kind of operation. I can't feel my legs. Everything went according to the plan. Excellent. Huh. Some of them escaped unscathed. Surely that's part of your plan, right? Don't be down, Doctor. Failure is often a part of the scientific method. Oh, good thing the AC is working in this room. Yo, Doctor, need me for something? Doctor, don't tug on my tail like that. Hello, Doctor. Have a cup of water. It's important to stay hydrated. Arknights. Despite longing for my home, I must say my experience with Rhodes Island has been quite gratifying. Every evening breeze in the deck feels like the first. Funny how I've been here for so long already. I wonder how my family is doing. During this occasion, we'd wear our white clothes and wait by the beach to watch the fireworks announce the coming year. This time is different though. They're there and I'm here. Say, Doctor, we might just see the fireworks from the land ship. Would you like to watch them together? Hoje vai ter uma festa. Dolly Guaraná botou ovo pra você. É o seu aniversário. Tá ficando velho logo logo. Actually, I don't think I should finish this song. Phew, that was a lot. Hi, welcome to the ending section. I just want to thank you for enduring my yapping through the whole runtime of this video, especially since it's my first time doing this sort of stuff. In reality, this project first started back in November of 2025, but it was way more ambitious. It would have an HU art, module story, and even a full-blown playable operator record with sprites and backgrounds and all. Obviously, it was way too much for me at the time, especially because I'd have to juggle that between my studies and work. So, when I got back to this project, I decided to dial down the stuff, not only so I could actually finish it, but also to better flesh out the ideas I'd be working with. And I'd say it was a pretty worthy trade. That said, it still took me around a month to get this whole video done, from redesigning my boy Raindrop to rewriting some of his voice lines and tweaking his kit. And writing the entire script for this video. And recording everything. And editing, I think you get the gist of it. Anyway, all of this to say that I loved making my own character for Arknights, from design to his skills. It's a really fun exercise and I totally recommend it to those who want to put their ideas on paper. What about you, dear viewer? Have you ever made a fan operator? Let me know! And if Hypergriff ever needs someone to design some new kits, you know where to hit me, wink wink with a nudge nudge. Yeah, that's all, bye! In the end, I chose Incantation Medics. It's the subclass of medics that heal your operators by damaging enemies. Puta merda, o som saiu. One thing I appreciate about Arknights Amiya is the only one who can heal without her normal. Amiya is the only one who can heal without her normal. On a 5 stars. Here's a comparison. Então vai ser desligado. E agora? Não aguento mais. Não quero nem saber se tem alguma coisa importante aí. Vou desligar essa bodega. Pronto. Não quero mais ficar ouvindo esse som de plim, plim, plim. Acho que eu famblei demais essa parte. Eu vou gravar tudo de novo. My internship at Rhodes Island. Tomar um gole do mousse.
O mousse virou piada, meu parceiro.
Right. Field missions are an excellent opportunity for... Escrevi errado. Meu Deus.
You can punch me, kick me, pull my hair. I am A-OK being stabbed.